No.
So the last category that we have left, we did Maran, we did the Rambam, we did the Arizal. Now we have the Rama, and with the Rama, and B'ezrat Hashem next week we'll already be doing Hilchot Purim. Piskei Hilchot HaRama Zatzah. It's the bottom of page Kuf Vav, section Mem Daled. The bottom right of the page.
No, my thing suddenly came way back. Okay.
B'makom she'Rama lo cholek al Maran. What happens in instances where Rama adds something, but it's not arguing with Maran? It's an added detail. You see, we know that when Maran and Rama argues, Sfaradim follow Maran. But what happens when Rama adds a detail that's not arguing with Maran? Yesh nohagim. Some have a custom. Nohagim. It's the plural verb of minhag.
Really? But there's no mem.
Right, the mem is not, the root of minhag is nun he gimel, nahag. And the mem is coming to add action to it. שבכל מקום שלא גילה מרן דעתו בשולחן ערוך ולא בבית יוסף, if there's any place where Maran does not reveal his opinion, in the Shulchan Aruch or in his Bet Yosef, נקטינה להלכה כפסק הרמה, that we, Sfaradim, follow the ruling of the Rama. Meaning, if the Rama says something, and Maran doesn't tell us what it is that he would do in that situation, we follow the Rama. Who says this? וכן כתבו שו"ת משפטים ישרים. Rabbi Rafael Berdugo in his book Mishpatim Yisharim, he holds like that. Shut to'afot re'em ankawe. Rabbi Ankawe writes this. ועוד פוסקים מובאו בספר הליכות עולם, they're brought in the book הליכות עולם, וכך כתב ספר תבואות שמש לרבי שלום מסס. Rabbi Shalom Masas writes the same thing, that whenever Maran and the Rama are not disagreeing, and Maran doesn't have an opinion, we follow the Rama. ויש מי שחולק, and there's someone who argues, it's סביר אדון, he holds, שדברי הרמה כדברי שאר המחברים. That there's nothing special about the Rama, just because he's printed in the Shulchan Aruch doesn't mean he should get any more respect than any other rabbi who lived. And therefore, if the Rama says something, you decide if you want to follow it or not. It's not important to follow the Rama more than it is to follow any other rabbi.
So will we say what you add as a minhag, not halacha?
No. So let's give you an example. I'm going to make up an example. Not a original. Let's say Maran says that you can't do X on Shabbat. And the Rama says, well, you also can't do Y on Shabbat. And Maran doesn't tell us anywhere in any of his books what he thinks about doing Y on Shabbat.
He's silent on the matter.
He's silent on the matter.
Yeah.
According to the first camp, so you listen to the Rama, you don't do Y also. I mean, you don't do X because of Maran, you don't do Y because of the Rama. The Rama is a very important rabbi. According to the second camp, the Rama is no more important than any other rabbi. So if Maran says you cannot do X, the Rama says you also cannot do Y. But other rabbis say that you can do Y. So we don't care to follow the Rama any more than we care to follow the other rabbis, and we're not obligated to follow his ruling in Halakha. Those are two different opinions. Haraperetz writes, Vaikar, the main principle is, שדברי הרמה בשולחן ערוך שהתקבלו מן שמעיה ונפוצו בקרב כל ישראל, that the words of the Rama that were put on the Shulchan Aruch and were accepted by the Jewish people. What has been accepted? It happens to be the Shulchan Aruch spread around the whole world, and the writings of the Rama spread in the whole world, and the Jewish people studied the Maran and the Rama together. יש להתחשב בהם ועדיפי על שאר המחברים. The Rama, you don't have to follow him, but יש להתחשב בהם. Take them into consideration. Treat the Rama better than you treat any other rabbi that comes after. מלבד בהלכות שהוכרעו על ידי האחרונים שלא כדבריו. Unless there are halachot which are glaringly obvious that the majority of the achronim disagree with what he says. So what does he mean to say? And we do this in our yeshiva. When someone comes to ask the question of halakha, for Sfaradim we rule like Maran. For the Ashkenazim, we rule like the Rama. Now the Ashkenazim say, well, what do you mean? We don't follow the Rama. Just because you Sfaradim follow Shulchan Aruch doesn't mean follow the Rama. Our attitude is, you should follow the Rama. Meaning the Rama is the greatest of the Ashkenazi rabbis who wrote commentary on Shulchan Aruch. We treat him with more reverence and more respect. So when we define opinions on halakha, it's Maran and the Rama. Everybody else comes afterwards. Now, if it happens to be the Shaar, Chavtaz, Magen Avraham, Kaf HaChaim, Mishabua, everyone kind of argues with the Rama. Okay, so what do you want to do? At the end of the day, he's not Maran. But when we can, we prefer the writings of the Rama over the writings of other Chachamim. And that's the attitude in our Beit Midrash. It's kind of like a compromise between both opinions. We don't blindly follow the Rama and everything. We also don't reject him as if he's just another rabbi. He's not. Ashkenazim kidat Rama k'shecholek al Maran. Ashkenazim, their tradition is to follow the Rama when he disagrees with Maran. Shulchan Aruch עם הגות הרמה. The Shulchan Aruch with the notes of the Rama in Mem Hey. הוא ספר הוראת ההלכה הברורה לכל ישראל. It is the book of clear halachot for the whole Jewish people. וכן קיבלנו עלינו אנחנו אשכנזים וספרדים בכל צבאות ישראל. The Sfaradim and Ashkenazim all over the world accepted the Shulchan Aruch. וכל שכן בארץ ישראל, especially in ארץ ישראל, להתנהג ולעשות ככל ההלכות אשר הראו בשולחן ערוך. To do all the halachot that are written in Shulchan Aruch. הספרדים כדעת מרן רבי יוסף קארו. The Sfaradim follow Rabbi Yosef Karo. Look in the brackets. מלבד אלו הלכות שנהוג בדעת הרמה. Aside from the times we don't follow Rabbi Yosef Karo, we follow Rama. והאשכנזים כדעת הרמה. And Ashkenazim follow the Rama. Look in the brackets. מלבד אלו הלכות שנהגו כדעת מרן בעל השולחן ערוך פוסקים אחרים. So Ashkenazim follow the Rama, except for when they don't. Except for when they follow the. Sometimes the poskim rule like Maran over the Rama. Or sometimes like another rabbi, Mishnah Bora, the Gaon of Vilna, somebody else over the Rama. But the loose rule is we all use the same book called Shulchan Aruch. Sfaradim follow Maran, Ashkenazim follow the Rama. כתב ספר שני לוחות הברית. You know who wrote the book Shnei Luchot HaBrit? You've seen his name before. Look at the acronym. Shnei is a shin. Luchot, lamed. Habrit is a hey. Shla. Have you heard of the Shla HaKadosh? That's him. He's Rabbi Halevy Horowitz. יצא טבעו של הגאון מהרמה ז"ל. The Rama has become famous already. ללך אחריו לפסוק כמוהו. To rule like him. ולבד מן השמיים זכה לזה. Not just. And he alone was worthy in Shamayim that they decided that you should follow the Rama. כמו שנפסק הלכתה כבית הלל, and we follow him like the rule that you always follow בית הלל. That's the way that Ashkenazim follow the Rama. וכבר נתפשט בתפוצות ישראל שבחוץ על הארץ במלכות פולניה ופיהם I don't know how to say that word. ומרן ואשכנז לפסוק כהגאון רמה ז"ל. He says the custom already in Poland and in Germany and in other countries in Ashkenaz is that we follow the Rama, just like as if it was divinely ordained that we should follow it. ובספר שאלות יעבץ, and in the book שאלות יעבץ, Rabbi Yaakov ben Tzvi. That's what יעבץ stands for. The Ashkenazim call him the Yavitz. His last name was Rabbi Yaakov Emdin. אחרי ששני המאורות הגדולים, בית יוסף והרמה פסקו כן. He says once already the two great lights, the Shulchan Aruch, Maran, and the Rama rule this way. מי יבוא אחריהם? Who dare come and question them? ואין אחריות האחרונים עלינו. Listen very carefully. He says we have no responsibility to any rabbis that come after Maran and Rama. You have a rabbi somewhere said something good for you. I don't have to take him into consideration. This is, by the way, the piece that I quote. People say, Rabbi, you make it sound like all Ashkenazim follow the Rama. Why don't you quote the Chavetz Chaim? Why don't you quote the Vilna Gaon? Why don't you quote the Hasidim? Because I don't have any responsibility towards them. Maran and Rama are in the Shulchan Aruch. ואין לנו לזוז בפסקי השולחן ערוך. We should not budge from the words that are written in the Shulchan Aruch. When he says Shulchan Aruch, and you'll notice Ashkenazim, when they use the term Shulchan Aruch, they are referring to the text that includes the Rama. So when Ashkenazim tell you, I follow Shulchan Aruch, they don't mean to say I follow Maran. They mean to say I follow the rulings of Shulchan Aruch with the teachings of the Rama. And in some groups, like some Hasidic groups, they, the thing with Hasidim, they didn't speak Hebrew as their natural language. So they have a lot of terms that they, like chasna, it's a wedding, instead of chatuna. They use the word Shulchan Aruch. When they say, for example, everything you do must do like Shulchan Aruch. When they say Shulchan Aruch, they don't mean a book Shulchan Aruch. They use the term Shulchan Aruch as synonymous for halakha. Jewish law. Very good.
Okay.
I mean, they could be quoting the Rambam and call it Shulchan Aruch. Or
And including that they're minhagim, right?
Everything that they do
Yeah,
is
they do
called
all their
Shulchan
stuff.
Aruch, even though it's not Shulchan Aruch.
The dogma I've always heard is that minhagim have to be followed even more stringently than halacha.
That's right. That's
I've
what
heard
they tell
it
you.
a lot of places.
Because
It's a
if
big
you
problem.
didn't scare people into following minhagim, there would be no compelling reason to follow them. Okay, now there's just some more sources that says. Let's go to page Kuf Chet, and we'll see what's called Klalei Harama. That's in section Memvav. Klalei Harama. You see that? So just like we had rules about Maran, when he says Stam and Yeshomim, and he says Yeshomim v'Yeshomim, and he says this is the minhag, or you should be careful. The Rama also, the Poskim also give us rules for how to read the Rama. So let's do this together. These are lesser known rules. You're going to notice how many of the rules of how you read the Rama come from Sephardic rabbis.
How did the Ashkenaz follow these rules from the Sephardic rabbis?
No, for Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch.
So look in Memvav. יש פעמים, there are sometimes, כותב דבריו בסתם, אף על פי שהוא חולק. Sometimes the Rama writes his words as if it's just a continuation of a previous sentence of Maran, even though he's really arguing with Maran. So let's explain. דרכו של הרמה, the way of the Rama, בהגה, in his notes, בכמה מקומות, in a number of places, נכתוב איזה דין או פרט דברי השולחן ערוך בסתם. Maran will say, you can do this, and the Rama will say, except for in this case. Meaning, the Rama makes it sound as if Maran agrees with him. But really, he's arguing with Maran. He's saying Maran would say it's okay, but I'm saying it's not okay. אף על פי שכן הוא חולק עליו, even though he's the one who argues with him. Okay, the next halakha. סתם ויש אומרים. When Maran says stam of halakha, and then he says and some say, which opinion is Maran intending to follow?
He's the first one.
The first one. Very good. The same thing is true with the Rama. Stam v'yesh omrim. כשכותב דין ועליו יש שתי דעות. When the Rama writes a halakha and then another opinion, אחת בסתם והשנייה בלשון ויש אומרים. The first one he writes plain, and the second one he writes some say. דעתו לפסוק הלכה כסתם. His opinion is to rule halakha like the first one. Omnam לעניין brachot, but when it comes to making blessings, I mean, there's two opinions, and the stam says make the blessing, and the Yeshomim says don't make the blessing. Katav Pri Megadim, the Pri Megadim writes, Amrinan Savek Brachot Lakel, that even those who follow the Rama would not make the blessing because of this rule of when you're in doubt as to when you make a blessing, you don't make the blessing. So, Stam and Yeshomrim, Rama rules like the Stam. It's the same exact rule as Maran. Yesh Omrim, when the Rama starts off a halakha just with one Yesh Omrim, he doesn't say it's a halakha, he says, and there are some say this. כשכותב דין בלשון יש אומרים, when the Rama writes יש אומרים, כוונתו, he intends to tell you שהדבר מסור לחכמים, that this matter has been passed into the hands of the sages, להכריע, to rule, לפי שיקול דעתם, according to their logical understanding, והבנתם לפסוק הלכה. Meaning, when Rama says, and some say you should do this, or some say you shouldn't do this, he's not giving an opinion. He's recording someone else's opinion and telling whichever rabbi is reading this book, you do with this information what you feel is proper to do. Meaning it's the Rama saying information that he's not taking any stance on. Mikom makom, but in lachmir v'lachush l'dazo b'shat adchak. When the Rama says such a thing, if there's some kind of pressing situation, you don't have to take it into consideration. I mean, because the Rama would really, if he thought it was a halakha, he would write it as such. Omnam, but kasher hu mesik v'chen yesh lahorot. When the Rama says, and some say, But at the end he says, and that's what you should rule in halakha. Then what is he telling you?
That's what.
That's what he holds, and therefore, when you see some say, don't think it's just an opinion. You have to look at the end of his paragraph. At the end of his paragraph, he says, and that is what you must do. Then he's saying he doesn't see any room to not follow that. Mem tet, the next paragraph. Yesh omrim v'yesh omrim. כשכותב שתי דעות בשון זו, יש אומרים ויש אומרים, when the Rama writes, some say and some say, what would Maran do if in a some say situation?
Well, normally we go with the first one.
The first
Well,
one.
when it's some say and some say.
Oh, is it twice?
We go by the first one when it's a halakha and then some say.
Oh.
But when it's some say and some say,
We follow the second.
we follow the second one. Very good. The same thing with the Rama. Datol difsokas v'achona. The Rama tends to follow the second opinion. Nun, Rama uses this term a lot. V'chein ikar, and this is the main thing. This is the main point. Kasher Maran posek lekula, when Maran rules leniently, v'harama behaga pasak leisur, and the Rama in his notes, he is stringent. V'siyem v'chein ikar v'chadomer, and he ends off with some kind of language like, and this is the halakha, this is the rule, this is the principle. Ken halakha ikar v'en b'zafek. What it means is that is the halakha according to him, and he has no doubts. Ashkenazim, meaning the way it says, Maran says this is okay, the Rama says no it's not, and that's a fact. When he says and that's a fact, what he's telling you is, it's not that he thinks Maran is a valid opinion, he disagrees entirely with Maran, and says you cannot follow that opinion. You show there are very few cases in which Rama argues with Maran in such absolute terms, which is why even oftentimes what happens is Maran says it's okay to do this, and the Rama says only in a pressing circumstance. In which case, what does it tell you? It tells you that he agrees to the halakha with Maran, but he's choosing to be strict about it. But in a case where you, for whatever reason, you shouldn't follow stringency, Rama would drop his stringency. What Al-Pez is saying is when he writes the extra words, and this is the law, he's telling you, even in a pressing case, don't drop this. It's not a stringency. He believes this to be the actual halakha.
Is the Rama usually stricter?
Almost always. Almost
So,
always.
yeah.
I think
Except
of a
on
few places
Yashan,
otherwise.
I guess.
Right, except on Yashan, except on cooking by non-Jews, except on a lot. Yeah, he has a lot. The Rama, for example, is. There's a lot of places where he's very lenient. It's interesting. The Jewish community picks and chooses because everyone follows. For example, sometimes I get it. Oh, how come he doesn't always rule like Rabbi Yosef from the Sephardi community? Then all of a sudden I rule like Rabbi Yosef. I say gelatin is kosher. How's he so lenient? But Rabbi Yosef is the one who ruled that gelatin is kosher. The people are very inconsistent. They pretend that this is their opinion, and all is when it doesn't work with their agenda, then it gets into a problem. Okay.
Oh, we've seen that happen.
All the time.
Around here.
Nun Aleph 51, the top of page Kuftet. V'chen minhag. Whenever the Rama says this is the custom, or v'hachi nohagim, and this is the way that people are accustomed. כשהרמה כותב וכן המנהג או וכן נוהגים, when the Rama uses this language of some have a custom or some are accustomed, it means that that's not his opinion in the halakha. He's telling you that this is a custom, and as you know about Ashkenazim, they're very particular about customs, so he's not going to come change it. But what happens if Maran says something okay, and the custom says it's forbidden, but for whatever reason there's a need to be lenient? ראוי לצרף דעת מרן לעניין ספק ספקה. When it comes to making a double doubt, you can be lenient. Does that make any sense to you? So let's look at this. I'll give you an example of a double doubt, which is sometimes utilized. Grape juice. Welch's grape juice. I'm not ruling now, for anyone who's watching this, I'm not telling you halakha, I'm just... Welch's grape juice, at least in the olden days, I can't tell you today,
Now they got the Manischewitz combo or whatever, right?
right, now was made by a machine. Welch is like the first people who made this machine that they don't even press the grapes and then put it in a machine. The machine takes the grapes, does everything it needs to do. It's like an automatic. At the end, you end up with plastic bottles and labels on it. Yeah, grapes on one side, which means that really there's no non-Jewish interaction at all with these grapes. I mean, aside from grape form, which is okay. But who knows? It could be that sometime in the factory someone did touch it, or in the middle there was a problem, and who knows? Whatever point in time. So you have a doubt whether or not a non-Jew touched the grapes. Now the grape juice is pasteurized. So by the time it ends at the end of the side of the machine, it's already been pasteurized. Now pasteurization is not hot enough to be considered bishul, the boiling of wine. I don't know an exact number. There are people who know these numbers by heart. But let's say bishul is supposed to be at 190 degrees, and pasteurization happens at 115 degrees. So the question is, what happens here in this situation? Now there are some poskim that will say that 115 is good enough for pasteurization. And here's what happens. There are poskim who will say, you have one doubt as to whether or not this grape juice was touched by a non-Jew or not before it was pasteurized. We don't know, so that's a doubt. One doubt against the prohibition is not enough to permit it. We need a double doubt. So there's one doubt as to whether or not a non-Jew touched it, and a double doubt as to whether the temperature of pasteurization is hot enough to make it mivushal. And because of that, there were rabbis who used to make kiddush on, just grape juice, regardless of supervision or not, because there was a double doubt permitting this grape product. And some will say, listen, it doesn't make a difference if there's a doubt as to pasteurization. Maran rules pasteurization is a certain temperature, so we don't make doubts against Maran. In which case, for someone who's Sephardic, for example, and follows Maran, you'll only have one doubt, and one doubt is not enough to permit this product. So now apply that here. Whenever the Maran says something is okay, and the Ramah doesn't say it's not okay, he just says the custom is not to do it. So in a case where you already have one existing doubt, you can add a second doubt that violates the custom. Even though you wouldn't do it on its own, but in a case where it's necessary, the Ramah would allow you to use Maran's opinion against the product and therefore permit it, or whatever other situation it could be. You know the logic of doubts and double doubts? Why does a double doubt work against a Torah commandment? We know why when a case of a rabbinic doubt, you're lenient. We know that because the rabbis made that rule. They said, we made a prohibition, and so whenever you have one doubt against our words, you can be lenient. The rabbis made that rule. But what's the logic behind saying that when you have two doubts, all of a sudden pig is kosher? Meaning, how do you get a Torah prohibition to go away because of two doubts? What's the logic that goes into that? You have 5 doubts. Still can't break Shabbat. What do you want from me? Why are our rabbis so confident about this rule of 2 against the Torah? There's 2 different opinions. The Rambam, I love the Rambam. What can I do? The Rambam says that every doubt makes something biblically permitted. When you have a doubt as to whether or not the meat is kosher, it's really only prohibited on a rabbinic level to eat it. And therefore, once you have a second doubt, that just follows the rule of one doubt against the rabbinic rule permits the food. So you needed one doubt to knock the prohibition from biblical to rabbinic, and the second doubt comes to knock out the rabbinic prohibition because rabbinic prohibitions only need one. That's the Rambam's understanding. There are other poskim whose names are still Rishonim that argue, and the Rishonim say, no, that's not how it works. It works that once you have 2 doubts and only one prohibition, so it's a majority rule scheme. Rov Tzadim.
Sounds like the Rambam's makes more sense to me.
The problem is there are some people who want to show that the Rambam, you can't do that everywhere, that there's a double doubt that's permitted.
It sounds sort of like a corroborating evidence idea.
Yeah, no, I personally have a leaning towards the Rambam's understanding of double doubt. According to the other ones, when you have 2 against 1, so it's the majority rule of the Torah. I once asked, what's the difference? And I got a very good answer from Rabbi Rosenbaum in Baltimore. He had a fascinating, he made a 30-minute class over the phone, and I'm embarrassed to tell you, I don't remember anything. So I'll have to call him back and ask for a quick repeat. told me that double doubts, if you're going by majority rules, there are certain things which are not dictated by majority, certain areas of halakha where the majority doesn't matter. And therefore, if the logic of a double doubt permitting a Torah prohibition was because of logic, because of a majority, then it wouldn't help in a situation where the majority is not a factor. But the exact example, I don't remember. Nun bet, 52. V'hachi nahug. When the Rama says, and this is the custom,
Custom, not this is the halacha.
it's hard in Hebrew to differentiate between this is the custom and this. Okay, let's put it this way. V'hachi nahug is different than v'kaina minhag. V'kaina minhag means and this is the custom. V'hachi nahug means and this will be the custom. It's the Rama playing a power game here, in which he's saying, this is what I'm going to make the custom happen from now on. And not that, meaning he's not observing, he's telling you the custom here is to be lenient about this. But from now on, we're not going to be lenient about it anymore. That's the term of v'hachi nahug as opposed to v'chein haminhag. Last one, 53. V'yesh machmirim, and some are strict. K'shekutev v'yesh machmirim, when he writes and some are strict, v'lo katav v'yesh utlim, and he doesn't use the word and there are those who prohibit. When he writes there are those who are stringent, but not there are those who prohibit, muvan shedato noteh ledat matirim, it's clear from there that his opinion is like the lenient authorities. So if you see the Rama as well, some say you should be strict, but that's not the Rama's opinion. If the Rama wanted you to be strict, he would write, and some prohibit. That's the word he would use. And this again, now that we finished these rules, when a person doesn't know how to read Shulchan Aruch or Rama properly, that's where you start getting this, the Shulchan Aruch says, and I'll say, no, the Shulchan Aruch doesn't say that. So, what do you mean it says? No. You have to know how to read it.
There's a
A
code.
lot of people misread the Rama because they don't read the code. You know where you see this? There's a fascinating introduction to the Talmud. How to learn Talmud. When Talmud says this word, it's introducing a certain kind of, when Talmud, there's a system to how the Talmud is written. I've never studied this in a yeshiva. I've never heard of a yeshiva that teaches these rules before you study Talmud. You would think, if I'm going to spend 16 hours a day studying Talmud, don't you think you'll give me at least one class on how to decode the codes of the Talmud?
You would think so.
You would think
It's
so.
gonna be a prerequisite.
Define your terms. Teach me the code words, the trigger words, the tags, what's going on. The problem is, in general, in the world of learning Torah, it's twofold. There's very little structure. Very little structure. Meaning proper structure. System. How to systematically learn something.
You just
The second-
kind of sit down and do it.
Yes.
I mean, because I used to sit in the yeshiva in Denver years ago, and you just sit down, open it up, and start learning.
Jump right in like a swimming pool.
But there was a teacher there. He was a professor at a university in Yerushalayim and also a university of Denver, and he taught what he called the Rambam method, and he gave the principles, which is like first get the overview.
Oh, wait, you're taking stealing my thunder, is that?
Really? Okay. I would say that.
No, I wasn't going to say that. Very similar to this. I blame this lack of clarity and systematic approach to study on the fact that the people who teach do not have a broad understanding of Jewish texts. Meaning, they don't know that, they might not even know there's a system. It's kind of like jump into it and swim, and some people jump into the pool and they drown. Because they lack that broad knowledge, they're not able to provide the context in which you study things.
Some people have gone crazy doing that.
I can imagine. And this is unfortunately what's missing. You know, in the old
It's like you're swimming.
Sephardic yeshivot, there was no chavruta time, ever. People didn't sit and study across from each other. What's the point of chavruta time? What do we do? I remember when I was in Baltimore. The rabbi gives a class from 12 to 1, so from 9 till 12, you sit with your study partner, and you break your teeth trying to understand what the Talmud is saying, what the commentary is saying. You come to class from 12 to 1, the rabbi assumes that by then you already understood the material, and he just elaborates on the material that you should have understood from 9 to 12. What ends up happening is that you get a lot of mistakes. I was in 9th grade, I couldn't read a piece of Talmud like when I was in 12th grade. There were for sure things that I misunderstood or mistranslated or misread or didn't even understand in the first place. All of a sudden I'm memorizing elaborations when I don't know what I'm reading. Meaning, I'm putting frosting on a cake I didn't bake yet. It's not there, the cake's not there.
Right.
And then what happens ultimately is you have 1 hour of class a day. I mean, the expert who's of Talmud is teaching you for 1 hour a day. The rest of the time you're studying with amateurs. In the Sephardic study, it was, what's the point of that? Why waste so many hours struggling? Instead, what happens? The Chacham sat like this, and everyone sat in a circle, and say, Zev, read the first halacha. And Zev would read, and the rabbi would correct him. No, you read that word wrong. You translated that word wrong. And Zev was, okay, let's read it together. And they would go around, and the rabbi was micromanaging the way you read the text. But also, you would hear, you didn't spend 3 hours reading the text wrong and then having to unlearn it later. So what it meant was you were sitting in class the whole day, literally. But the relationship with the Chacham was, I mean, that's what Rabbi Yonatan is, that's how they pass off the Mishnah. They simply read the Mishnah in public over and over and over, and it sticks. That when you hear Torah that way, think about it, there are times where you're able to pray. Most people know the parts of services that you sing by heart. You know, like, it's a long paragraph. Some people remember by heart because you sing it all the time. In the Sephardic community, it's very interesting. I'm sure you've noticed when we pray. Even like random chapters of Tehillim, you know by heart. Sugei de Zimra, when most people are mumbling them, you know them by heart. It's very human minds are very simple in this regard. You chant something enough times in the same tune, consistently, every day, or every week for X amount of time, you're going to know it by heart. And what it gives you is the broad knowledge, and then what do you do on your off time? You elaborate on your own, every student and how much they're able. Once you get the core on your own, so you don't need the rabbi to walk you through elaborations. You're able to sit on your own with your study partner and tear apart text. But the foundation has to come from somewhere. Now I have a student who's taking a test by our parents and the laws of Ketubot. So what's the hardest part of getting tested by our parents and the laws of Ketubot? Like, filling it out, the names, how you spell the cities. I said no. Our parents, the most critical part of testing you in laws of Ketubot is can you read a Ketubah properly? What do you mean? I said most rabbis don't know how to read Ketubot. When they read the Ketubah, they make all the mistakes in the world. He says, how can you be the rabbi who's officiating the ceremony, who's ruling on how you spell the name, but you don't even know how to read the text of the Ketubah? Our parents will make you take a Ketubah with vowels and memorize it. You just gotta know how to read right. That's something you would think, like it's so simple that you should know how to read correctly, but in so many places, that's not even that's not a value.
Given.
It's an interesting thing. So when it comes to learning halakha, you have to know what are the rules. And when you understand the rules of Ma'an, you understand the rules of the Ramah, now that you have them, you should review them. And don't review them, keep this with you when you bring your books. And next time you find a Ma'an that uses the word Yesh Omrim, V'yesh Omrim, or the Ramah says V'chen HaMinhag, go look to see if we're being consistent. It could be that I'll forget one of these rules. You say, hey, if that's really what the Ramah is saying, then he's saying it's not a custom in the first place. You have to know how to read this properly. The last thing I had here is, I'm not going to translate any of it, but Rav Peretz mentions a few books that are worth having when you study Shulchan Aruch, a few commentaries. The first, in Nun Daled, is the Birkei Yosef of the Chida. The Chida wrote, they counted like 53 books. I have all of them. I got this at $395. Well,
It was on sale, I hope.
I think they sent it to me from the YU Safari sale back like years ago. And this books were out of print for a very long time. They came back to print only in certain places you can in the United States. In any case, there are all kinds of things: Chumash, Tanakh, Haggadah. Okay, and there's this volumes of Birkei Yosef, which is the commentary of Shulchan Aruch. He says it's an important book to have, and there are many communities that really they follow Shulchan Aruch based on the reading of the Chida.
Is this where they wrote it in Rashi script and nobody knew why? Or
A lot of it. Let me show you this very fast. They didn't see the nice cover of this book. It's the same print that it always had inside. They just photocopy everything and repackage it. It's nothing. The cover is new. This was his signature. That's the seal of the Chida. Yeah. Why it's on Rashi script, I have no idea. The truth is, Rashi script just makes it difficult for people to learn things. The next there, the Mishnah Bua, written by Chafetz Chaim, very good, and the Kav Chaim is written by Chaim Sofer. And this is they're both later day commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch. Halpet says, and you'll see on page Kuf Yud, that but for Sfaradim, there's one word, Omnam Sfaradim. When you study Mishnah Bua, it's very important. You can read this commentary, but you have to know how to differentiate between when the Mishnah Bua is explaining Ma'an and when the Mishnah Bua, because he's Ashkenazi, is contradicting Ma'an. You have to know that not everything the Mishnah Berurah reads into the Shulchan Aruch is what the Sephardic rabbis would read into the Shulchan Aruch. And for that reason, we have the Kaf HaChaim, who's the Sephardic on the Shulchan Aruch, and yes, there's a lot of Kabbalah there, but these two books, we use them together. In our Perez Yeshiva, we use these two books complementing each other.
It's
I have both of
interesting
them in my briefcase.
It's interesting that was translated into English very, it was one of the first Shulchan Aruchs into English.
Yeah.
And a pretty decent translation in some ways.
Which one?
It was the one with the commentaries and the different
Yeah.
renderings and everything. I learned it years ago.
We have someone donated a set of that to the shul, which is when we get space, we'll have it here. The commentaries of the Taz, the Shach, those are the standard, they're Ashkenazi commentaries, but in the print of the Shulchan Aruch, they're the ones that show up on each side, like Rashi, those ones, Shach and Taz. You have Nun Zayin, the Chalkat Mechokek and the Beit Shmuel, those are both commentaries, they're found in Even HaEzel. So every book of Shulchan Aruch has different commentaries on it. Nun Chet has Mirat Einayim, the Shach, Netivot HaMishpat, those are other commentaries. And last but not least, you see this book, Aruch HaShulchan. Aruch HaShulchan is a very special book. Aruch HaShulchan was written by Rabbi Yonatan Halevy Epstein. I've mentioned him to you before because he claims to be from the Sephardic dynasty and his family fled to Europe. His commentary on Shulchan Aruch is very different. It's not so much a running commentary as it is like further elaborations on the Shulchan Aruch. It has many conversations. In the more snobby yeshiva world, they like to study Aruch HaShulchan more than Mishnah Berurah because like Mishnah Berurah is for little kids and Aruch HaShulchan is for real students. But there's something interesting about Aruch HaShulchan that you might not know is he wrote a book called Aruch HaShulchan La'atid, the Aruch HaShulchan of the future. He basically wrote a Shulchan Aruch for when Mashiach comes.
Wow.
It's pretty cool. I've tried to get my hands on it a few times. I couldn't find it in America. One day I'll get it. And Mashiach didn't come yet anyway, so I have time. But my uncle had, I used to look at it. It's very interesting. Simple. Like the Rambam wrote halachot about the Beit HaMikdash. He also attempted to do something similar, but with a lot more opinions than existed since then. And these are the commentaries used in Shulchan Aruch. It doesn't mean we don't use other ones, but these are the main ones that you see quoted over and over and over again. A lot of the other books that we quote when we study halakha are not commentaries on Shulchan Aruch. They're like letters of responsa and separate standalone works of halakha that, unless you study them cover to cover, you wouldn't know to find this issue. For example, when I look up Shulchan Aruch, the laws of tzitzit, I know where that correlates to the Tur, the laws of tzitzit, where you can find the Rambam, laws of tzitzit, where you find Mishnah Berurah, laws of tzitzit. But when you write a standalone book that doesn't follow the same order as the other books, then unless I studied that book cover to cover, I wouldn't know to look there. And that's why those who know halachic responsa, it's very easy to learn. Not very. It's easier to learn halachic responsa than it is to remember where to look it up once you need it. It's the hardest part of, you remember, I remember Rabbi Yosef wrote about it, but where? I don't remember which book. He doesn't have a running commentary on Shulchan Aruch. Thankfully, what a lot of editions of books have done is in the back, they'll say the list of all the letters of the rabbis, letters of all the rabbis, and which chapter in Shulchan Aruch it correlates to. So at least you can kind of find your way around. As indexes get better, it's easier to look things up, and you have less excuses for forgetting things. I have lunch of next week. You don't need to bring this book. I may send you laws of Purim to print out, B'ezrat Hashem, and we'll do the laws of Purim until Purim comes.